Okay, perfect. So hello everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight for our Outdoor Industry Career Panel. We have some really interesting guests joining us tonight, and I really look forward to introducing them to you all. Before we begin, we'd like to start by acknowledging that the land McMaster University is built upon is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the Anishinaabe Nations. This territory is within the lands protected with a dish with one spoon wampum agreement. The wampum uses the symbolism of a dish to represent the territory and one spoon to represent that the people are to share the resources of the land and take only what they need. If you're interested in learning more, you can go visit the Mills Library on campus once everything opens back up, and they have some excellent resources for students. And for those of you who are not on or around the McMaster campus, I would highly encourage you to do some of your own research and reflect on the history of the Indigenous peoples whose land you occupy. And an excellent resource for this ongoing learning process is native-land.ca. And as we continue throughout our programming tonight and in the coming weeks, we give honor and thanks to the traditional inhabitants of the lands we occupy and acknowledge that it is our responsibility as guests of these lands to respect the land and the relationship that Indigenous people have with the land. For a few housekeeping items, I will note that, as you probably just heard, this panel discussion will be recorded and made available on our YouTube page after tonight. And additionally, I'll just ask that any participants who are not speaking just keep themselves on mute to reduce the background noise. And if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat box, and we'll have a question and answer period at the end of our presentation. So now to get into a few quick introductions. My name is Hannah Christie. I'm in level 2 astrophysics at McMaster, and I'm one of the trip coordinators for the Outdoor Club this year, and I'm really excited to get into today's topic. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see each other, and I'll have our panelists introduce themselves. So Wayne, do you want to go first?
Thank you, Hannah. My name is Wayne Terryberry. I'm the Outdoor Recreation and Natural Lands Coordinator at McMaster University. And I've had the great pleasure of working with many students at the university for over 2 decades now. It's been incredibly exciting, incredibly empowering for me to work with such a gifted and engaging students. So thanks for the opportunity to be on the panel tonight. Thank you, Hannah.
Thanks for coming out, Wayne. Maybe Dan, do you want to introduce yourself next?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Hannah, and hey, everybody, how's it going? I'm Dan Andrews, and during the daytime, I work for the Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority as a land and planning resource tech. Most of that time is really dedicated towards inviting visitors to our conservation areas and then helping them have really great experiences and finding a way to make sure that that's resourced properly, and a whole bunch of other things at night and on the weekends. So good to see everyone.
Thank you so much. Shawn or Michelle, do you want to introduce yourself?
We were just discussing who was going to go first, and I drew the short straw. So I'm Michelle. I've done lots of different things over the last, without aging myself too much, I'll say 25 years. I am currently 1 year and 4 months into being the executive director at Paddle Canada. And this is my husband, Shawn.
Then you step on my foot. I'm Shawn. I work with the Limestone District School Board in the Kingston area, Kingston, Ontario. And I work at the Gould Lake Outdoor Center. We're a outdoor center that's been running since about the 70s. I've been there full time for about 20 years and then worked with a few other companies here and there while doing that and before that as well. But we do curriculum-based day trips for students in the board during the school year. And then in the summer, we run canoeing, kayaking, and hiking trips for high school credits for students in our board and other boards nearby too. Yeah.
Shawn, I'd like to just...
and we have 2 sons.
I was just going to say
we have 2 teenage boys in the background. We're going to try to keep them.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Shawn for all his leadership with the Gould Lake students. And thank you for sending them to McMaster University. I've had a great great luck and great fortune to work with many, including Chloe and Hannah, over the years, from back to Ashley Mercer and Mark Tarnopolsky and others. So thanks for all the great leadership work you do with outdoor recreation.
Yeah. It's funny. There's lots of people that seem to filter their way down to McMaster. Most of them. It's good.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. So we can move on to our next question, which is, what is your favorite part of your job and what is your least favorite part? Maybe we'll start with Dan this time.
Okay. I had to think about this for a while because I really enjoy the work that I do. I've been at the authority for 8 years now and did a myriad of jobs leading to that. But I think the favorite part of my job is providing really good quality outdoor experiences for the people that we invite to our conservation lands. It gives me a front row seat to see kids laugh and smile, and parents take a bit of a breather as their kids are running around. Or, I mean, especially during these times with COVID and the increased number of people that are visiting the conservation areas that we provide for folks to visit. It just really provides a bit of a break for folks that are coming out. So I would say that's probably the best one.
Amazing. Whoever wants to jump in next can.
Okay, I'll go. Go ahead, Shawn or Michelle.
I can go if you want. So I think probably there's a lot of favorite parts. If you ask me tomorrow, I'd probably have a different answer for this one. But the thing that pops to mind is one of my favorite parts is when we are running trips. We have a barn, it's called the barn. It's a big old dairy barn that we base all of our programs out. And usually students would take like a bus ride for a half hour out to the barn, and then we would take them out in the woods and we do different programs. This time of year, if it wasn't COVID, with the COVID restrictions, we'd be usually doing cookouts. So we'd meet the kids off the bus, talk to them about tracks and scat, and then head out into the woods where they would cook their lunch over a fire. So we do a lesson on fires, and then they would figure out how to cook. Some of them haven't cooked before, and then make their lunch and hike back. And by the end of the day, kids are usually pretty exhausted, but it's like such a great tired. And it's one of those programs where you can get a student that maybe thought they weren't going to be into it, or maybe has a lot of trouble in a classroom, but it's really easy to connect with them because they put in hard work and they get something directly out of it, and you really get to sort of light that fire or see that start in them, that they realize that this is actually really something cool or really something fun to do. So I think that's always the biggest highlight for me, is just surprising students with what they can do themselves. And I don't know, the least favorite part, I guess, is sometimes with a school board being part of such a big thing, you can get really excited to get a program going or to try and launch something or fix a small problem, but there's lots of steps to go through with that. So it always takes time, and just sort of like stepping back and letting everybody catch up to your wonderful plan that you have that you think will be the best thing ever, and trying to explain that to the right people to get it moving. It's good. But our board is like super supportive, so we're really lucky that way. So we don't usually run into too many hiccups. So it's good.
I definitely remember going out to Gould Lake in like grade 5, and it was super icy, and we were making hot dogs over the fire, and it's one of my favorite memories of elementary school. But yeah, that's really cool. Wayne, do you want to go next?
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, thank you. I would echo both Dan and Shawn's comments about the getting people outdoors and providing that adventure-based experience where they challenge themselves and find more about who they are, gain self-efficacy, understand, conquer and adapt to challenge, finding the confidence from that. But I think I might elaborate on the understanding the ecology and the environment. I always found the best way to engage people, and especially youth who are the leaders of the future, into how we can nurture and protect our environment and our ecology, the best way is to expose them to that so they get a love and a connection to that. Is, I think, probably what thing at most I find most interesting about my job. I might add, working with university students is always really exciting. As I mentioned earlier, it's getting the energy and the empowerment from being with them, and getting the exciting energy that I get from that experience. I'd say my least favorite thing, despite the fact I have a finance diploma from college way back when, the budgeting probably is, I can do it, but I'd rather be out with people and doing outdoor things as opposed to sitting in my office going through budgets and doing credit card statements and other types of things. That needs to be done, and I guess that's the role I play, but I'd rather be out leading a hike or engaging with people. So, but administration is a big part of what you do as well.
We're definitely thankful for everything that you do to help us out at the Outdoor Club. Michelle, you're the last one.
So the funny thing is my answer is going to be very different from what everybody else has stated. This is probably the first job I've had in the outdoor industry that has not involved me being outside with people. That said, the flex schedule that it gives me allows me to sort of curate my own work hours. And what I found over this last year is I actually have a little bit more time on my own for my own sort of personal driven adventures, if you will. That being said, what I am really enjoying about what I'm doing right now is I am virtually meeting people all across the country. I work with I work with our instructors essentially, but they also, I think what we'll learn is a lot of people who are instructing paddle sports, it's not their primary sort of main day job. It's sort of a side hustle, if you will, for many of them. So, or it's seasonal work. So it's interesting to sort of meet, that insurance guy or that lawyer or that teacher or the person who works at a desk by day, by night as a paddle instructor. So it's really neat to hear those stories. And then I'm also, by proxy of my position, I've been working with the Outdoor Council of Canada, and I sit on the board of directors with the Canadian Safe Boating Council. So it's really interesting to see sort of the political side of the outdoor industry, if you will, and sort of other organizations that are also at their desks trying to pave the way for those of us that are those folks that are in the field doing the work with the students and the clients. So that's it's this whole other side of the industry that I'm seeing that I wasn't really aware of before when maybe I was doing the guiding or the instructing. And at the same time, that's probably my least favorite part of the job is the fact that I unwittingly signed up for a desk job when it was the one job I always said I never wanted to have was a desk job. I find myself with a desk job. But it's for the greater good, so I suppose it's okay for now.
Amazing, thank you. So our next question is a bit of a two-parter, and it's how did you get into the outdoors, and how do you think that kind of led you along your career path? Maybe Shawn, do you want to start on this one?
Question. So I guess like it started as a kid, like growing up, I was always outside. I grew up in the city in Kingston, but it wasn't really like a hang out and watch TV kind of childhood. So we were always outside. And then I think I started hunting a little bit with my father when I was probably quite young, like 4 or 5 years old. So that introduced me to a different look at the forest and getting out of the city. And then I did my first canoe trip probably in grade 7 or 8, and like totally scared and did not know what I was doing or anything like that. And then the place I work now, I actually went through as a camper. So I started back in '89 and did my first 9-day canoe trip. And there was no turning back from there. I just kind of launched myself into that and knew that's what I wanted to do. And then for lots of years with school and that sort of thing. You would have your like school year, and then you would trip all summer. And then after I graduated school, I would trip all summer and then look for a job for the school year. So I would do whatever I could to try and just make sure that when it rolled around into spring, I could get back into paddling again, which was great. Eventually, that turned into year-round work. Maybe not like the highest paying year-round work or anything like that, but it kept me on the water and it kept me in the woods. So that was well worth it for me. I think I started working when I was about 16 or 17. It was one of my last years as a student, and a staff got injured and pulled off of a trip, and I was in the right spot at the right time and got hired. And then since then, the only summer I haven't been out working in the industry was in year 2000. I thought I should get a real job, and I went and worked and did some civil engineering with my cousins, and I hated it. So I was right back into it after that. But yeah, it's just kind of held me. It's one of those, like we always talk about this industry being a thing where it kind of just encompasses your whole life. It's not necessarily like a job. Like even this evening before this, I was putting together things for lessons tomorrow, right? But you don't really think of it as like taking your work home. It's just what you love doing. So yeah, that's kind of what, does that answer?
Thank you so much. Michelle, do you want to go next?
Sure. So I attribute my love for the outdoors to a boy, but not in the traditional sense. Sorry, it's not you. I grew up in Scarborough, just down like part of Toronto. It was a concrete jungle. My mom dated a guy when I was about 11 or 12, and he took us on a canoe trip. He took us camping, and something about it just grabbed me. And my teachers in grade 8, we did a field trip to an outdoor ed center, and I got some principal's award where I got to go and spend, I think it was a week at the Toronto School Board's outdoor center at Lake Kearney. And I learned all of these amazing things like the J-stroke and canoe packs and how to plan a canoe trip. And I went back to my family who, we were the family that would pack 4 people and a dog into a 16-foot canoe and carry hockey bags as backpacks. And I started teaching my family all these things I had learned. And I guess that's probably where it really started. And then I had high school teachers that put me into different programs and led me to study at Sir Sanford Fleming. And then I met this guy who also sort of wanted to live a life outdoors. And I guess that helps finding somebody that wants to do the same thing. So I guess it's been really good because we've been able to support each other in having these pretty cool jobs that don't necessarily pay tons of money, but they bring, there's a lot of other sort of really good assets and benefits to it. And I guess it all goes back to some guy my mom dated when I was a kid.
Thank you so much for sharing, Michelle. Maybe Dan, do you want to answer next?
Yeah, sure. So I guess I first got into the outdoors by going outside. And it's similar to part of what both Shawn and Michelle had said is I've been doing it my whole life. I had siblings that would stay and play video games, and I was just never into that. Give me a stick and a ball and I'm away for the day. So I think part of that just became one of those, I got surrounded by people that love being outside. And the more I aged, the more I found people that like to do that kind of thing. Not saying that my siblings don't like to do that. They just don't love it as much as I do. What else? I think, I guess it turned that near daily habit into something like a passion with a purpose. So again, the older I got and the more things I did involved in the outdoor community, I just didn't go wandering. I started to look at destinations and with a goal in mind. So whether that was the job I had at the time or whether it was an experience that I was putting together, and it's a myriad of experiences. Certainly I paddle and I hike and I go out in the woods in the winter, and love to go fishing and tripping and all those kinds of things. But also you need to find a way to make a living. So I certainly found a way to do that. The other part of the question you had is just how do you choose the career path? I thought about that question. I thought, honestly, how am I going to answer this one? And I think I'm going to do just that. I'm going to honestly answer it. And I think the simple answer for me is from failure. And maybe some of you experienced this already, or it may come at you a little later on. But early days in my post-secondary, I was at Ryerson in a completely different, unrelated career path. And I hated it. It was gearing towards working in an office tower. And it certainly, I could do the kind of the machinations of the day. I could do the job if I needed to, but it wasn't a job that I was necessarily going to love, because it was going to be in the concrete jungle and away from the places that I feel at home with. So I was in Toronto in a job at the time after Ryerson, and my dad worked in the city, and I went, he was a cop. So I went to the station. He was getting off his shift, and I jumped in the car to go back home north of the city. And we got to chatting, and he said, "So what are you doing?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, where are you going?" So we had a roundabout discussion before we pulled in the driveway, and he said, more or less, "You love recreation. Why aren't you pursuing that?" And I think I just don't believe at that point I ever gave myself permission to pursue play as a career path. And I thought, oh, maybe he's onto something. So from then, I just started looking at, well, what could you do that was meaningful in recreation? And I was leaning towards outdoor recreation, and that's what I dove into, both feet. Been there ever since.
Thanks so much. And Wayne, you're up last.
Thank you, Hannah. I kind of a little bit different path. I grew up in the country on a pretty big farm, and our neighbors had acres and acres and acres of forest. So I would spend a lot of time in there in my teen years. Our cross-country team used to run in there. I'd had dirt bikes and made trails and absolutely loved it. And had a lot of farm background from that. And after high school, I went to Outward Bound and did the Outward Bound Wilderness School up in Black Sturgeon Lake, up in near Thunder Bay. Oh, there was a forest fire at the time, so we did ours in Mobs, Minnesota, Outward Bound, up in Quetico and the border waters, which was really amazing, really challenging. And came back from that. I ended up taking business at Brock and Mac, and then I traveled for a while and with the Fanshawe, and finally came back to McMaster with an interest in international aid and international politics, and that was going to be my thing. I was going to travel the world and save the world and go to Africa and work on famine and many things. But I needed a job for that when I graduated, so I started working in operations at McMaster in athletics and rec. And I really quite enjoyed working there. But then on the side, I started a travel company doing historical and educational tours on the side in my spare time. And just by chance, and I'd done a lot of outdoor rec stuff, going on canoe trips and hikes, many years. But then they asked me, "You want to organize some canoe trips and hikes through your travel company for the recreation program?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. I know how to do that. I got a travel company." And so I did a few with, I'm sure some of you know John Rudolph and John Heslop from Orca back then. They were my mentors, Bob Henderson as well from Mac, good friend and mentor. They all helped me get started, and we did some trips, and I ran it through my company. And then finally I said, "Why don't you just hire me half-time to do this instead of me running it through my company and doing it in my spare time?" So thus outdoor recreation was launched at McMaster in 1995, and I did it half-time. And so I got away from my international development and aid, and I realized that I can do more for the world by educating youth about the environment and the outdoors. And there's been thousands and thousands of youth, just like with Dan and Michelle and Shawn, been able to reach and help that way. And it's been incredibly fun. And the program's just grown from there. So like everybody said, I had a passion for it, but it just came fortuitous in some ways, although I knew I wanted to travel and I knew I loved outdoor rec, but I didn't think I would be getting into outdoor recreation. But it was probably the best chance thing that ever happened. And we could talk a little bit more about taking initiative, throwing your name out there and volunteering, getting to know people, because doors will open and things just happen by your networking and your connections. And that's how I started working in athletics, and that's how I got asked to do canoe trips. And so it's all really following your joy, or in the words of Joseph Campbell, follow your bliss. And that will be a pillar in your life. But reach out, open doors, and they will provide opportunities. Maybe not every one, but one door will, oh, wow, now you know somebody who knows somebody, and next thing you know, you're on your way. So that's kind of how it all happened.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And I know I can always count on you to slip in a little bit of like wisdom and with your answers. So thank you so much. Wayne started answering the next question, which is, what is your educational background and how do you use it in your job today? Anyone who wants to jump in?
Let me just roll while I'm at it. I'll be done my part for a little while. My degree is in history and political science and finance, which is sounds odd for outdoor recreation, but it's not, because I understand the history, the environmental history, reading the landscape, understanding, and it helps interpreting. And I know everyone's probably done that on the call here, but understanding the background, the heritage, be it ecological or human cultural heritage. So I've had a very strong understanding of that. History teaches you to be resourceful and look for information and find things. As I mentioned, the finance diploma certainly helps me with understanding my budgets pretty well. And but it was taking that chance at the Outward Bound Wilderness School that really set me up with the skills and the knowledge and the hardcore tripping background. I didn't have the chance to go to camps because I was a farm kid and I worked on baled hay all summer. So I dove into it hardcore right after I graduated. So it's a little bit different standard of education for outdoor rec, but it helps a lot. Yeah.
Thanks. Dan, do you want to hop in next?
Sure. So I already alluded to the fact that I went to Ryerson for a small period of time and got the hell out of there. That happens to some of us. I gave myself permission to go to college because at the time, lots of people were being pushed at a certain level, and perhaps it's still happening today. But if you get a certain mark, you should go to university. If you get a different mark, maybe you should think about that other path. The reality is the path that I took at Fleming College, as Michelle had alluded to, it's a great school over in Lindsay. And I took Parks and Forest Recreation, and I loved it. I still remember an incredible amount of information that they crammed in my head during my 2 years there, and filled it full of experiences that related to natural science and outdoors and all things that we've been discussing. So that set me up for the possibility of a third year. And I went, not sure that I want to do another year here. I think I need to do something else. So I had a chat with the program coordinator, and she said, I think it's time you went back to university and applied yourself in a different way. So that's what I did. I went to Lakehead in the outdoor rec program, and I love that experience, whole different set of experiences. I got to live in the northern part of our province for 5 years, paddled all kinds of rivers, sea kayaked on Lake Superior, started getting involved in guiding. And then I guess it was the day of my last exam, I started my first full-time job in the industry, and I got totally immersed in a guiding company. And the experience that I had there was an amazing experience. And I think Shawn had alluded to this earlier, and that was just about that industry. Unless you're going to own the company or going to work for a significant company, you're going to have piecemeal work. It's going to be seasonal, and it's going to be lots of weekends, and it's a real tough slog to get her done. And I thought, I know I'm heading towards having a family, and I got to change tacks. So I actually put in to be a teacher. I applied to teachers college. I got accepted, and my mom, who was a teacher, had said, "Don't do it." So why? You're going to be stuck in a classroom and you're going to hate it. No, Mom, I'm thinking about like doing outdoor ed. No, I don't think that's your passion. You need to take a good look at what your passion actually is. So my passion's all around the trail sector and the recreational trail sector at that. And I said, Mom, I think you're right. So I declined going to teachers college, and then I switched tacks, and I took all that knowledge that I learned over the years and applied it to recreational trails. And that's what I've been involved in for the better part of 20 years.
That's such a cool story. Thanks so much for sharing.
Can I just add quickly to what Dan said? I forgot that when I graduated high school, I was either Brock Business or Fleming Forest and Recreation. And I ended up in Brock, and I wondered but I ended up coming back to Rec 15 years later, but I wonder what had happened if I'd gone to Fleming. It was one of those toss-up things. So I just forgot about that till now. Thanks.
Thanks, Wayne. Shawn, do you want to hop in here?
Are we on? So I guess I'll work at it a little bit backwards. As far as education goes, I think over the last 10 years or 20 years, I've been much more interested in gaining education and learning things, just self-directed. I find this is the kind of job that there's always something to learn, right? And if you always kind of have it in the back of your head that you might not know everything, then it's the best job in the world, because you're always going to pick something up. What landed me here before that was before this job was Sir Sanford Fleming as well. I went for Parks and Rec when I went there, and when I originally signed up, it was because I figured a game warden would be a good thing to do. And then I got thinking about that once I got there. It's do I really want to be going and telling people with guns that they shouldn't be doing what they're doing? And really, I just like canoe trips and things. So I reevaluated once I got there, and then decided Parks and Rec was more my path. But the reason I ended up at Fleming was in high school. I was by far not a very good student. I was just kind of scraping through, dealing with some learning disabilities and some maybe not wanting to be there kind of stuff. And my guidance counselors were great. They asked me what I was interested in. I said outside, and they said, go to this school. I wasn't looking at becoming a teacher or anything like that at that point. And then it's funny that now I ended up doing lots of instruction work and working with the school board. But yeah, I think going through the high school programs I went to was the first taste of the education that got me to where I am today, even though I didn't know it. And then going away to take Parks and Rec, where you learn all kinds of things about trees and geology and everything you can think of. Even though it was tough stuff to learn then, and you wondered the relevance of some of it, now it's been one of the best things that I can apply to my job, and has given me a really good base to learn from there. That being said, I worked where I work now before I went away to school. And then I went and worked a bunch of other places and came back to where I'm working before I went away to school. So I guess I still ended up in the same spot. So maybe I'm where I'm supposed to be, or maybe there's something wrong with me. I don't know. Anyway.
You were supposed to go to school to meet me.
Yeah, that's right. I was supposed to meet Michelle. That's why I went to Fleming.
I just want to say, Dan, I think I need to take some mentoring from your parents from when our sons get to that place where they're trying to decide what to do with their careers next, because they seem to have it dialed down.
Yeah.
That could be a whole other panel that we can have. So yes, I went to Fleming as well. There seems to be I'm sorry, McMaster, maybe you're all going to end up at Fleming by the end of the night. I don't know. I think I ended up there because to be honest with you, I didn't have the math marks to get into university. I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I think it was my high school geography teacher combined with my guidance counselor that put both Fleming and Sault Ste. Marie in my sort of schools to be looking at. And I initially went in for fish and wildlife. The idea of rec didn't really cross my mind at first until I started at Fleming and did the first semester and realized I was having this memory of instructors that I had had at outdoor ed centers I had gone to as a student, and had this moment of, I want to be on that side of the bus. I want to be the one in the parking lot greeting the kids off the bus. I did find that the rec program at Fleming was very much geared towards working in parks and being more of an interpreter, and I don't think that that's what interested me at the time. Anyway, we finished school and I was able to find work with, moving to Kingston, I was able to find work with the school boards doing some outdoor education. We got some jobs at an outdoor ed center. And then interestingly, I decided to go back to school. I enrolled at Queen's to study geography with the idea that I would get a teaching degree. And then we were offered a pretty cool guiding gig up in Algonquin Park, and I had been on the fence about should I pursue the university thing or not. So we dropped everything and we moved to a cabin in the woods and did this guiding thing. And then when we ended up coming back to Kingston, I was really trying to decide how was I going to find work in the outdoors. And by then I was looking into not necessarily outdoor ed or recreation jobs, but I felt my college degree actually wasn't recognized when I was looking to get into consulting and environmental consulting and stuff like that. That when I said that I had a resource management degree from Fleming, like the doors were just getting closed. So I actually found it really frustrating that I had these two diplomas from school. I had my rec one, and then I had this resource management one, and I couldn't find work. And so I don't know, I guess what I'm getting at is I don't necessarily think my education really helped me. If anything, a business degree would help me a lot right now in the current role that I'm in. But I managed to find my way using, I think, maybe more life experience and some of the certifications that we had acquired while at other jobs and in school to sort of put me on the path that I ended up.
That actually leads perfectly into the next question that I had, which came up when I was pulling the other exec members of what they wanted me to ask. But it's, what is some key certifications or qualifications that were instrumental to your success? If you'd give advice to anyone who was like looking to take some certification courses.
Well, maybe I'll start, Hannah. I think, yeah, I think certainly wilderness first aid, you know, paddling and certification, anything like that. I find, and I don't know what others would think, but when I'm looking at resumes for people coming into the program, I'm a little less concerned whether they have an outdoor rec degree from Brock or Lakehead or whatever, but it's really the certs that I look at. What kind of certifications do they have? How much tripping experience do they have? Which is really makes them employable, because, you know, for send a trip out, you know, I need at least advanced wilderness first aid or orca canoeing or, you know, hike Ontario or whatever it might be. It's the passion for the outdoors. They could have a business degree, they could have whatever, but it's their experience and their certifications, which immediately allows me to send them out on trip. For example, if they could come from Brock of 4 years of outdoor rec, but unless they have advanced wilderness first aid, I really technically am not sending them out until they get it. So it's the experience and the certifications. Those are the ones I think, Interpretation Canada, any of the Outdoor Council of Canada programs for Paddle Canada, or any certifications, which are mainly specific, but certainly the ecological side of things too. Knowledge or experience from any of the organizations, Nature Conservancy or Caroline in Canada, or any of the groups that could provide some background. But it's a bit the passion and the experience, and the certain certifications are really important. So there's a lot of them out there. NOLS, anything like that would be, NOLS especially is incredibly good, very in depth, and all the ones in Canada are very good too. Thank you.
Maybe Shawn, do you want to add in here?
Sure. Just to echo kind of the same thought with us, if we're looking for people, because we're part of a school board, the school board's governed by OFIA, and all of these organizations have a minimum standard that we can hire. So even as far as people coming in with an interview, or for me working through as a student that wanted to become staff, I had to work through a certain chain of certification. So Wilderness First Aid is for sure a great one. We also run our own smaller company as well, our own very little business that does some well, anything for a buck, but lots of different canoe trips and things like that. But that's kind of one of the things we look at as well, as a Wilderness First Aid, so that people can deal with things over an extended period of time, not just dealing with Band-Aids. And then also the canoe trip leadership certs, like the Canoe Tripping 3 and Paddle Canada has certs as well, and different provinces all have different certs, but something that shows not just canoeing skills, but also some leadership as well. So can you read what the rapids look like, but then can you go the next step, because when you decided you weren't going to run them, Billy ran down them anyway, right? So can you do what needs to happen next? So certifications will give us a little bit of an idea of whether or not people are coming in with at least that base level. And then a big thing for us, or a big thing that I look at with people, is just their people skills. So just through asking questions about situations that they've dealt with along the way and how they dealt with them. And a lot of those skills you can learn. We take courses for first aid, we take courses for paddling. But sometimes the people side of it is a really important part of it for me as well. Just looking at, like, if I send my kid out on a canoe trip with this person, and my kid is homesick, or my kid has an upset stomach, or my kid, whatever happens on the trip, how is this staff going to actually talk to my kid and sit down and talk with them? Or are they just going to be more consumed in, like, just being cool and being out there and everything's okay and let's get going? That's a big one for me. I think that's kind of a hurdle a lot of younger staff that I work with, and even myself, go through as well. We get it in our heads that the important part is just being able to do the job, to, like, safely shuttle people from point A to point B. But there's so much more to it than that, that I find as well. Is that it? So, yeah, that's it.
While our mic is open, I just have two sort of thoughts on certifications. One is a personal reflection, and I can't think of how many times I would be out paddling with a guest and they would quiz me a little bit. How long have you been doing this? Oh, what else? Like, have you taken courses? What level of this do you have? And while they're trying to sort of disguise it as interesting conversation, I know really they're interrogating me to kind of be, what right do you have to take me out on this water? And if I flip my boat, what are you, like, how do I know you've got my back? So from a personal reflection, having certifications gives me those answers to make my guest feel that they're in good hands. And then it reassures myself, oh, I am allowed to be out here. I do have the training. I do know what I'm doing. And then the executive director of Paddle Canada part of my answer would be, I think you have to look at certifications as part of your education. So you wouldn't go see a dentist that wasn't certified to be a dentist, or you wouldn't go and get your car fixed by someone who wasn't certified to fix your brakes. And so going through a certification process is part of your education because it's giving you the tools to, like Shawn said, it's giving you more than just the hard skills of how to hold your paddle correctly, but it's how to teach other people to do that correctly and to safely do that, and to be given the tools to teach different people in the different ways that they need to learn how to learn that hard skill. And then it's giving you, you know, the backing of that organization if you ever needed it. And I had another thought and it just left my head. Maybe it will come back to me.
That's actually one point that Michelle kind of reminded me of too, is with certifications, especially with paddling certifications and courses, when you get into instructor certifications, they really do teach you how to teach things to different people. And I'm sure all of us have run over, or not run over, but run into people that are very, very skilled and very good at something they do. And then you want to learn it from them, but they cannot teach it worth anything. They're like, it's almost those intuitive people that just know how to do things. And I find a lot of the time certification courses, especially at the instructor level, will teach you how to break those things down. So you can learn that if you're going to do a certain skill, you need to do A, B, C, D to do it properly. Instead of like somebody teaching you how to surf and say like, well, you'll just feel it, man. Like, just start paddling and pop up there and you'll just go with it, right? And it's like, what does that mean? Like, before you know it, you're just trying to figure it out on your own anyway. So I think a lot of the courses that I find that are worthwhile are structured in a way that it like really takes it back to like setting things up step by step by step. The other great thing about it too is that when you look at standards for what you should be doing liability wise and things like that, most good courses will be set up where you don't have to take it on your own self to decide whether or not you should be doing something. You can fall back on like, here's what my training says. And like 9.5 times out of 10, if I follow my training, things are going to work out well. Instead of like, well, I saw this TV show where they did this, so I think I'm going to try that. But I find when you have that set of standards, then if I know that I'm running a trip, I'm going to follow that set of standards. And if Hannah's running a trip, she's going to follow that set of standards, no matter what our experience levels are. So that's also a really nice thing about finding good quality instructor courses and certification courses. I used to be the opposite though. I used to hate certification.
Sorry, I was going to echo Shawn's thoughts on soft skills and hard skills. You know, I was always taught with my climbing courses and my high ropes that excellent climbers make awful staff, because they think everybody should know how to climb, and you have to teach them how to facilitate just like everybody else from the beginning. So it's not your skill, which is really great, but it's being able to teach and be able to leader and being understanding people, as Shawn and Michelle said so well. It's the leadership side of it is equally, if not even more important than the hard skill aspect. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Okay, I get to go last. So as you'll see in the boxes, my last name starts with an A, and I almost always go first when someone's picking me. So whether I'm the first in the first to do an assignment or a presentation or something else to do with you're on the spot. So Andrews, you go first. Until you get to the food line, someone always messes it up and says, hey, let's switch things up. Whoever's last name starts with Z, you get to go first. And I'm always left with the cold plate of potato salad. So what I like about this question is that Shawn, Michelle, and Wayne all went first. So it gives me a chance to seem like the Zen master and give you all a little sense of something different. I'm going to take a different tack. My tack is coming from the other side. So not someone that's going to hire you, whether you want to pursue this more towards a full-time career or you want to do it on the weekend as an outlet or something just to decompress or de-stress or to give back. So I've got a binder full of certifications, just like Wayne, Shawn, and Michelle do. I'm sure all kinds of things that seem relevant at the time 25 years ago, and I don't even touch now. I wouldn't even dream of doing some of those things. I'm always getting upgraded. So this education thing, it bleeds into another question I'm sure Hannah wanted to ask a little later on, but I'll give a little preface in that if you like learning, you should become a lifetime learner, and then just always get ready to learn something new. And so I think I'll take 3 of the certifications that I have. The most recent one that I got was a high efficiency trail assessment. It was an instructor course. So kind of springboarding from other courses that I've taken in the past at the instructor level, the instructor component, teaching what I was learning to other people, that wasn't an issue. It was learning those hard skills. How do I know how to master this thing they're trying to teach me? And doing it over and over again until you really understand the mechanics of what's going on. Because when someone asks you the tough question out of left field, like Michelle was saying, it'd be great not to just have one answer, but have a couple of answers or maybe 3 answers to that question, because maybe the way you explain it the first time, they don't understand it. So to be able to really understand the minutia of whatever it is you're training, whether it's something to do with a pedestrian activity or a motorized activity outdoors, or something that is very skills-based, very technical, knowing all the little bits and pieces and really understanding what those things are will make a massive difference in sharing the information back. So the second qualification, going a bit further back, was a coaching certification. So again, my experience has been in outdoor recreation, but I've also been involved in organized sports. And as soon as you get kids want to do different things. You know, Dad, I'd like to do this sport. So whether it's soccer or hockey or whatever it may be, I have passions of my own, and my wife and I decided we'd let our kids pursue their own passions. We could provide them with answers, but we weren't going to steer them in any one given direction. Lo and behold, 2 of my kids really liked hockey. So do I. You probably see the stick in the background. So I figured my dad was a coach. I could probably be a coach. And so I started taking courses. The coach training I take comes from the last certification experience that I'm going to talk about. It's the one that I've had for the longest. But it really comes from my paddling certifications. And it's, how do you keep this person in the sport for life? How do you really hold on to that mantra and say, how am I going to teach this in a way that it's not boring and they're going to learn something new and they want to keep doing this? So I went after not just the kind of core coaching certifications, but I also looked at the little things that were offered in the shoulder seasons for hockey or in the summer, especially now that you can do things online. You can learn little things about a game or an activity or a pursuit that someone's found a really unique way to teach it or to show something a different way. So always look for those nuggets that are out there, and they're out there all the time. The furthest back one is paddling. And I'm conscious of the time because we could probably all tell stories for the whole night. So I'll try to be as brief as I can. So I paddled my whole life, and I really sucked till I was about 24. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And you can ask my wife, because she pulled me into the Outdoors Club when we were in high school. Yes, we were high school sweethearts, blah, blah, blah. But she pulled me into the Outdoors Club, and she had a lot of skill. And I watched what she did, and I thought, wow, I really suck. How do I do that? So she taught me a few things, and it just continued to go from there. I learned more in college. I took more courses. Then we went to outdoor rec in Thunder Bay. And one of the prerequisites going into second year was that you had a certification in something. It could be a hike leader. It could be a climbing pursuit. It could be paddling, kayaking at the time. And I thought, yeah, I've been involved with canoeing a lot. I better go this way. I'll probably learn a lot, and I love it. And the more courses I took, the more I understood how badly I sucked. So then eventually you start getting pulled in and taught by people that have great skill. They have great people skill, and they have great hard skills. And if you can marry those 2 things together, what you have in the end is something that's pretty amazing for yourself, and you get to share that. So I had this aspiration once I really got to understanding paddling that I could aspire to be a master canoeist. That sounds pretty cool. Not a lot of people are master canoeists. So I took some moving water courses, really enjoyed those, started getting proficient in that. I took some tripping courses and I really enjoyed that. And then I took this lake water paddling because someone said, you really should try that. And I tried it and I loved it. And then I became an instructor, and then I became an instructor trainer. And then they changed the name to Canadian Style Paddler. So now I just sound cool. But I think dial it forward to now. My youngest is in grade 8. And just a few years ago, we have a conservation area where a youth at risk group rent out part of that conservation area space, and they run all kinds of programming. Public are not engaged with that camp, but I was looking for somewhere to paddle because I'd come back to the Newmarket area where I am now, and there's not many places to paddle close to home. But not far away in this conservation area, there's this really great little pond where, because I'm working for the authority, maybe I could get this little deal and go over there and paddle. And what happened is I had a conversation with the executive director and I said, do you have a paddle program? They said, well, we have a canoe tripping program. I said, oh, I get it. I know what that is, but do you have a paddle program? And they said, well, yeah, kind of. What are you talking about? So I said, I'll tell you what, you give me half an hour. We'll come to the dock. You jump in the canoe with me. I'll show you what I'm talking about. You can hop back out. You can decide whether or not you want me to come and help you out or not. So jumped in the boat. We're in the canoe for 15 minutes, paddled around. And I said, okay, stop paddling. And I brought her back to the dock by myself, stopped. She got out. I said, so just want to show you a few things about what I understand about a canoe. And I did a few pivots and some circles and some sideways displacement, blah, blah, blah. And she went, oh. So just hold on a second. Can you do that again? So she took a little short clip of it and sent it to all our staff. And she said, I just found the guy that's going to teach all our kids how to get ready for your canoe trip. Whoa, hold on a second. But it morphed into my daughter and I go out and we bring these kids from the city who are youth at risk, and we give them potentially their first canoeing experience. And it's super basic, but because you understand way up here, you know how to make the experience golden. And if you can take your qualifications, your certifications, and really hone in on one or two of them and share that, it's really good. It's golden.
Thank you so much. Chloe and Annie can probably attest to this, but the 2 days that we spent doing CSP with Shawn, our wilderness instructor course summer, were probably two of the hardest days that we had, but they were also super cool, just learning how you can like maneuver your boat in different ways. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing. So this brings us to our last question, which is, what is some advice you'd give to students looking to pursue a career in the outdoors? Maybe Shawn or Michelle, do you guys want to start?
I think I think you have to know now and accept that it's going to be a life of passion or a career path of passion. In that, like Shawn said at the beginning of this tonight, it's all encompassing and it is your life. So when we get home from work, you know, we're still kind of doing things. We have a little tiny home farm, so we're, you know, tending to chickens or bees or the gardens, or we're planning our weekend canoe trip with the kids or fishing or whatever. Like it's always there. And then we were trying to tally up over the years, we've probably had 10 or 11 sort of what we call side hustles to help, depending on where you go with a career in outdoor. Might not be one that's, you know, gonna afford you the big fancy house with a really huge mortgage. so you might find that what you do with your downtime is a little bit different than perhaps, you know, status quo, in that our traveling is a little bit more local, or it's exploring closer to home and doing things like that. But I think it really is a lifestyle, because if you're getting into, whether it's guiding or interpreting or teaching, whatever sort of path you end up on, if it's not what you believe with your soul, it's going to show. So you have to, like, it's going to be who you are. I don't know how to say that any better than that.
Yeah.
But then you have a lot of creative freedom, and I think you have a lot of opportunity to be your true self, with whatever niche you find. And I think that's important too. And I think whoever you encounter and whoever you help, like, you might be that one person that's going to make, you know, somebody in 20 years from now might use your name as the answer to the question who put you on that path. And I think that's really neat to think that over the years, anybody that I have helped, whether it's been through the guiding that I've done, or I spent a lot of years in outdoor retail and instructing in that world. And I'd like to think that there are people that remember something I showed them. And then on the flip side, every time I take a new group of people or person out, it reopens my eyes to what I'm seeing, and I get to experience, you know, a trail or a piece of water that I take for granted through new eyes. And I think that's something you might not get in a traditional career.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll go since we have a little dead silence. But yeah, I really could completely echo what Michelle just said. It's a choice of a lifestyle as opposed to making lots of money in your life. And I'm very happy I have the lifestyle. I love it. And it's really, truly who I am. Like I said, I had a finance diploma, and I've started being an investment counselor. And sometimes I reflect way back, I could be a multimillionaire now, but I wouldn't have been happy, maybe. I have a great lifestyle, and I really enjoy and embrace what I do. And it's, as Michelle noted, your hobbies become your work, which is awesome. But then I had to find a new hobby, and like them, I have a farm, and I have chickens and goats, and it's really great. And I know some of the students have been there before, so I had a new hobby to kind of give me another passion, which I loved. And I think it's the being innovative. No matter what your career or what your education is, you could find some way to embrace the outdoors in some way. It's about being innovative and creative and looking. There's so many things, like things are growing in sustainability, economic service, natural economic service values, a lot of new ways of looking at things, that whether it's a business degree or a science degree, there's something you can do that'll bring you into the outdoors. It's about being innovative and not looking for that standard style of this is the way jobs are. Create something and add something new. And I think that would be the biggest recommendation. But I also want to echo what Michelle said about having new eyes. Every time I take students to Algonquin, I've been there hundreds of times, but I come back with the same smile. So, wow, this is amazing, because I see it through their eyes. Like, this is incredible. And I'm just pumped about that. And also coming back from the trip, or whether it's a high ropes program, just seeing the smiles on everybody's faces at the end is really what the biggest powering reward of it all is those smiles that you see and how it's made a difference. But I think I just really echo being innovative and find a path that is new and novel and fits into your goals and your education. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
I totally agree with everything that's been said. whether you pursue something in the outdoors full-time, part-time, or it's something that you really love doing, but just not sure how to get involved, I guess the next thing, and Wayne's already alluded to this earlier, is volunteer. So find a passion that you're interested in, and maybe it's a little scary because you don't know a lot about it, but it's an area that you have a great interest in, and volunteer in that. You'll find people that are in organizations, particularly ones that are related to the outdoors, as volunteers. They tend to really come at it with a lot invested in the game. And if you can have an eyesight on a goal that you would like to have as a volunteer, whether it's to just provide some hands or reach an outcome by the end of a month or the end of a year, that would be amazing. If you have an interest to go a little further and become a board member and really help an organization, that's a fantastic way to marry your passion for the outdoors and to get involved, which may open a door for you. So I would suggest have a look at opportunities to join boards, and you can be the lowest person on the board, around the board table, in terms of your understanding or skill set, but it doesn't take long to ask questions and start to elevate. You'll be surprised the kind of skills that you already bring to the table because of your life experiences already. And yeah, just have a look at volunteering.
Thank you so much for sharing, Dan. And Shawn, last but not least.
Yeah, I would actually, it's actually great going last because there's lots of great ideas. So I would say the same thing, like experience is going to be what gets you there at the start, right? So you're going to take certifications and those are going to get your foot in the door so that you can start getting experience. But really there's no substitute for actually just getting yourself out there and learning with other people that know. A big thing for me was doing trips with my peers as well. Like, so if it's canoe tripping or if it's like whatever you want to do, like skiing or anything like that, get out there with people that are at your skill level and learn from each other as well. And keep forcing yourself to learn that way. A big thing that I learned working in this industry was just always to kind of reevaluate too, because you're going to change along the way. Like you're going to run into walls where you don't like what you're doing some days. So sometimes you just have to stop and like see what has changed. Like, have you changed, or has the job changed, or what's going on, and just relight that fire for yourself and look at like, okay, here's why I got myself into this mess. So here's what I'm going to focus on doing again. I'm going to get myself back on the track that I want to go. So for a lot of people, like we work with lots of people where it's a stepping stone. So it's people that are at university age that are looking for summer jobs and they love canoe tripping. And it's really easy to lead canoe trips and to be that person that everybody looks up to. And that part is great because if you're doing a good job, they're going to learn from you just because of that. But it also feels good. Like, let's not kid ourselves. It feels good to be kind of the person that like knows what's going on and is leading and doing a great job. But then sometimes you fall out of that. Like you hit a little bit later on, maybe you're like hitting late 20s or something like that. And like, but now if I go on a trip and I'm trying to relate to kids with like the latest Britney Spears song, it's probably not going to work quite as well as when I was 20, right? So you kind of have to like look at just the new kind of cool and what you do and not get so caught up in maybe what you thought you were going to be, that pedestal that you looked at, the people that led you, not trying to be that person and just trying to be yourself and own it yourself and remember your passion for it as well. I think that's a big thing that will keep you interested in it. I think if you try and change everything else around what it used to be for you, then it's not going to work. So that's just a lesson for me personally that I learned along the way. And like I said it at the start, just always remember that you're always learning. You're always every person you trip with, whether it's somebody that hasn't done it before or somebody that's done it for a lot longer than you, you're going to learn things from them, and hopefully they're going to learn things from you as well. I think that's another important thing to remember too, not to always have it in the back of your head that you might be wrong and there might be another way is one of the best life lessons that I've ever learned. It just kind of opens you up for all kinds of new learning. think that was it. I had something else too, but I don't remember what.
It's okay. I have one final little piece of advice, and this is the mom in me speaking. So I spent a lot of years guiding and instructing, and then we decided to have a family, which meant I sort of had to take a little bit of a sabbatical from the outdoor portion of my outdoor career and sort of slid into a different role that still kept me in the industry, but maybe not necessarily in the field. And now as our kids got older, then I sort of started slowly getting back out into the field, if you will. And I'm sort of now at that point where, as they're even older and we're not that many years away from them not wanting to spend their summers with us, that maybe I can still kind of get back in there. So if this is going to be a lifelong journey and a lifetime career, know that things might have to adjust with how your life circumstances do, and you can still find ways to stay in the industry without necessarily having to be fully engaged out there on the land or whatever, depending on what.
I remember the other thing. Starting out, you're going to have lots of bad jobs and lots of bad experiences, and like you're going to run into, like, whether it's you're guiding fishing trips or you're guiding ski trips or whatever you're doing, like in this industry, you're going to run into people that are looking to make money with their company, and they're looking to do that by just hiring whoever they can. So sometimes at the start, you're going to get a job that might not be as well organized as you would hope for. But I've always found that if you can step back, you're going to learn lots of stuff from that too. Like whether you're learning what not to do or how not to treat people, that's important as well. But for me, anytime I have a bad experience, I try and look at, like, okay, well, there must be something to take out of this, like whether it's on me or it's on somebody else. So if it's looking at like working with somebody that hasn't been as organized as I needed them to be, or whether it's like I didn't prepare myself well enough for the trip I was taking out or the lesson I was going to do, that horrible feeling of like, ooh, this does not feel good what I'm doing right now. Like me trying to relay this information that I don't really know enough about. I like to hang on to those feelings so that they don't hit me again the next time, so that kind of pressure actually forces me to do a better job. I don't know if that's professionalism or what it is, but I think that's one thing that people that get into the industry, I don't know how you teach that to people, but I think it's one thing that's really common between people that are very good at this kind of job, is that they go back, they reflect, and they get better on it instead of just being like, nah, I'll just wing it, it'll be fine, and hope for the best. I think you really have to have that drive to make it better each time, and to make sure that the person that you're teaching or the person that you're guiding is actually getting just as much out of it as well too. That was the other thing.
Thank you so much for everyone for sharing. So that's the end of the questions that I had prepared, but I'd like to open it up to any of the participants. If they have any questions to ask our guests, feel free to just unmute yourself and ask.
I guess we did a pretty good job, team. Yeah.
Also covered everything. In that case, I guess we'll just close it up for the evening. I would like to just promo our next event, which is an environmental speaker about invasive aquatic species, and that's happening at 7 o'clock on March 11th on Zoom, the same password, same Zoom code. Maddie's running that one. But thank you everyone for coming out. A big thank you to our guests for being so open and sharing all of your experience and knowledge with us. We really appreciate it. And we couldn't do these kind of events and run the kind of program that we do without the support that we get. So thank you very much, and hopefully we'll see you all in an upcoming event.